There's a story I've been thinking about and working with myself in my own practice that I read about not long ago. It involves a Tibetan Buddhist ancestor named Milarepa. So if you've studied some history of Buddhism, maybe you've heard of Milarepa. There are a lot of stories about him. Most of them are probably literary creations. They're probably not actually true. But they all serve a function, as literary stories can do sometimes. So Milarepa had been practicing for a while with his teacher and had become pretty stable in his life. And so he was off doing solo training, living in a cave by himself in the mountains of Tibet. And one day he goes out to gather firewood to cook his meals and returns to his cave with an armload of firewood. And his cave is filled with demons. They weren't there when he left, but he returns and packed, chock full of demons. And so when I read that, I thought about, I don't know if you've seen Tibetan Buddhist imagery, but these figures they're really something. They got hair that's on fire and green skin and bulging eyes and blood dripping out of their mouth and fangs and claws, and they're really demons. So when Milarepa enters his cave and he sees these guys hanging out there, he goes into a fury and he throws all of his firewood at them, trying to chase them out. That doesn't work, so he picks up rocks. And they just sit there. They don't move at all. The sticks go right through them. So, because they're demons, if you do that in demon world. And so finally his fury dies down a little bit. And he says, well, how am I going to get rid of these guys? I can't have them in my cave. And so he says, oh, I know. I'll teach them about Buddhism. So he teaches them the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path and all these wonderful teachings of Buddhism. Some of you may know these teachings. And they don't move. They just sit there. Being really gross and disgusting. So now he's really stuck. So, some time goes by and they're still sitting there. Finally he says out of something inside of him, he says, well, what do you have to teach me? All the demons disappear, except for one, the biggest, meanest, ugliest, foulest of the demons. Doesn't move. So he sits with that demon for a while. And then finally he gets up and goes over the demon and puts his head into the demon's mouth. And that's where the story ends. And that's very interesting. All of us, at some point, discover that we have some demons in our lives. They're actually there most of the time. But most of the time we don't see them. We choose not to see them, actually. But sometimes they come out really strong, and we can't not confront our demons. And one of the ways in which we work with demons is we go into a rage. So all of us know what it's like to get angry with our demons. When a demon appears, we all do it. Maybe a demon on the highway that cuts us off. But we're driving very nicely and politely, thank you, and then somebody does something we think is kind of stupid, and so we know that feeling, how that energy can appear so quickly. That rage energy. We don't actually want to feel the terror of something very unsafe happening in our lives. We don't want to feel the terror, and so rage appears instead. But that's only one of the ways in which we work with our demons. We have two other kind of classic strategies. We get involved with addictive behaviors. It could be alcohol, or tobacco, drugs, any kind of addictive behavior. It's a way of not dealing with the demons in our cave. We also, another strategy we use is we very actively pursue our pleasures. It could be a video game, if could be celebrity gossip. Could be sports. Could be sleep. Could be any number of activities that we find pleasurable, and we just go for them as a way of, again, not looking at the demons. The internet has become probably the biggest source of pleasure for most people these days. I find it very hard to stay away from, actually. But whatever strategy we pursue, as Miller Uppa found out, our demons don't move. It doesn't affect our demons at all. They're still there. And so then there's the second strategy that Miller Uppa tried, was he tried teaching them Buddhism. You know, he was studying for a while. He's like Algernon. I mean, you know, he'd been practicing quite a long time at that point, and he knew a lot about Buddhism. He knew all the good teachings, all the secret teachings. And so he thought that would get rid of the demons. You know, having this knowledge would actually get rid of the demons. You know, so he conveyed his knowledge, and of course the demons weren't moved by his expertise. Oddly enough, you know, one of the teachers in our schools at Master Daquan says, you know, if you know, in Zen training we have these konans, these little puzzling stories that we work with. And he said, you know, if the answers to these stories would actually help anybody, we print them up in book form and hand them out. You know, the answers actually, the knowledge doesn't help anybody at all. So Miller Uppa tried, you know, sharing his expertise with the demons, and they weren't listening that day. So they continued hanging out. So the story doesn't actually, the version of the story that I read doesn't actually describe what was going on inside of Miller Uppa, but I can imagine, we can all imagine how when you've tried your habitual response to demons, which is rage or addiction or pleasure seeking, that didn't work. Then you tried sharing something which is quite precious to you, you know, your knowledge and your wisdom about life, and that also doesn't work. Then what? What I imagine happened to Miller Uppa in this story is that he got deeply stuck. In Buddhism, we call that sense of being stuck, don't know. You know, he really got entered into the space of not knowing what to do. Very powerful space. We've all, I think, encountered that in our lives, being so stuck in somewhere and nothing appears. You know, it's a very uncomfortable feeling for us to be that stuck. But the demons aren't going anywhere, so he's just stuck. And then something wonderful does appear for him. This question appears. And so he says to the demons, what do you have to teach me? What an unusual thing to say to demons, right? Because we're terrified of our demons, you know, so it's not common that we would say to some afflictive part of ourselves, what do you have to teach me? So we have to be kind of at the end of our road to want to do that with our lives. And of course, when he says that, they disappear, except for this one. So there's something in that, you know, and there's something about turning and facing our lives in a square, honest way that drains some of the juice out of our own demons. Maybe not forever. We have to do it repeatedly in most cases. But we all, I think, all know this. You know, when we turn to our lives and face ourselves squarely in the mirror of life, you know, then we experience a change. Very commonly we experience that this compulsive energy that we can feel to do something that just we know is going to make our lives worse. You know, when we turn and face that directly, then we can feel an easing of that compulsive, driven energy. And yet there's still this one demon left. So I can imagine Miller Uppa sitting even more deeply with not knowing, what do I do with this guy? I've covered all the other ones, but there's this one. And I don't quite know what to make of that one exactly, except that I think all of us probably have one thing in our lives, one place in our lives that we don't really want to go. You know, it's just too terrifying to go there. But Middle Repton had been practicing a long time, so his center was pretty strong. And he was willing to go, ultimately, into that place that all of us resist. And so in the story, you know, he puts his head into the mouth of this demon. And that's where the story ends. I think it's a wonderful ending of the story because we don't know what happens when we go to this place. You know, anything can happen. It's uncharted territory. You know, maybe the territory of awakening, which is, it cannot be talked about. You know? Words can't touch it. So it's a good place for the story to end. That's the gift of, in our tradition we call it don't know mind. Is out of don't know mind, anything can appear. Oh, please teach me. Horrible beings, please teach me. You know, it's so wonderful. So that's for me, that's when I come. So I didn't know this until I read the story. I mean, I could have described this 6 months ago, but I realized that I come to practice because out of this don't know, something new can appear. Doesn't always. I mean, mind habits are still present. They still can get activated pretty quickly if I allow them to be activated. If I choose that. But there's also something new that can appear. And that's a great gift because it allows me to reach out and welcome this world. So that's what I'm doing with you. Thank you for listening. And I'd be happy, very happy to answer any questions you might have.